We're so excited to be back with you. Today's lesson on life is mending families, church, family, and love relationships. Two of the hardest relationships is church and family, but they're also two of the most healing relationships. And so we want to talk about that. This is the time of the season where there's a lot of hurt out there. There's a lot of things that are left unsaid, a lot of things left undone. We want to talk about that. So today joining me is my co-host on the show is Mr. Daryl B. Freeman. Hello, I always have to say that. He is a relationship coach, an author, and a national keynote speaker. We worked together on several occasions, and I love working with him. He's going to talk to you about some different things as it relates to fatherhood, as it relates to relationships. And I also have with me my friend, Reverend Sylvia Copeland Murphy, who's also co-producer of the show, CEO and president of SCM Vision. And she's going to tell you a little bit about herself as well. And also she's going to touch on those church relationships. We also have with us Mr. Will Levis from the Will Levis Show, 88.1 FM, the essence of HU. That's how they say it. And so welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much. So I want to start just talking about family relationships. Why do you think, just a general question, people have some of the issues? What are some of the issues that you see maybe in families? Before we even get to mending those relationships, what are some of those things that pop up in families? I see some with the fathers, and I see some with the couples. I see some, of course, with, of course, when I get to church. But what are some of those issues that maybe come up that we have to mend? Or why do people even pull away from their family?
Yeah, I think one of the things might be, Dr. Perry, is a lack of being able to literally acknowledge that something's wrong. And that's literally where it starts. And I call that the need to acknowledge. And you can't go anywhere, you can't accomplish anything, you can't mend anything, you can't fix anything, you can't correct anything, you can't rearrange anything, you can't until you acknowledge something's wrong. But there are times when you need someone outside of the situation to see it and to say something about it, even if you don't like it and you don't want to hear it, whatever that is, for someone else to see it at some point. The wheel starts spinning and you have to acknowledge it.
One of the things you hear a lot is what goes on in the family stays in the family. Do you guys think that's a good thing for us to hold on to after all these years?
No.
Yeah. I would go that it's both.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there's one thing when it's just like, shh. I'm saying shh. You know she's going to tell somebody, shh. You know, it's one thing to do it that way. And it's another thing for it just not to be one of those things where you're just broadcasting it to the world. It's something that the family is dealing with. You know, granted, it's not illegal and all that, but but it's something that the family is dealing with, and it's between the family. So I think it can go both ways.
Okay.
I think control. I really think that family have problems because someone wants to control the other person. Parents a lot of times can't let go of their child and to say that, okay, you're on your own and you know how to make these decisions now. They want to control. And when that child does not let that parent or custodian control them, then that's where problems come. I think I've seen that a lot.
I've seen that too. And your child is growing up, even if they are 17 or 18, right on the verge, but especially when they're 25, 30. But some of us, people are 35, 45, and you still trying to tell them what to do, and I know it's hard to let go. And so we're not going to pick on the parents, but this is about sort of mending those relationships. So we got to talk about the problems too. So let's talk a little bit about one of the things I wanted to highlight is how to talk to those fathers and sons. Daryl and I have done some work in the fatherhood and healthy families arena. So I want to start there. And how do we get some of these fathers and sons to talk, and help? But before you do that, can you let people know what that fatherlessness, what that is? What that means, because a lot of people don't know what that is.
Yeah, one of the things that we have to come to grips with is the understanding that there is countless numbers of fathers who are not involved in their children's lives, don't know their children. Some don't want to know their children. Some children don't want to know their dads. And there's countless numbers of those, and more than we can imagine. I mean, the percentage, I'll just throw out at least 40%, that just don't know their dads.
Mending starts with acknowledging. I think we addressed that. But also dealing with those emotions that come along with that. And some of the effects that we end up seeing when a father's not in a young woman's life. There are countless incidents and pictures. If you look on Facebook and Instagram, pretty much girls ain't got no clothes on. It used to be a little scandalous, but now you literally see some stuff that shouldn't be up there. And I think because not necessarily even that role model, but not even having that image of a father, someone saying, no, you're not going out of this house wearing that. You're not going to dress like that, or you're not going to look like that. I love you, and this is how a man should treat you, and this is how you should treat yourself, most importantly. And I also a dad not being in his son's life. There are so many young men who wish that they had dad around to throw the ball with, just to sit on the step and talk to tell his dreams to, someone to sort of guide his path. And so I want you to understand what's missing when dad isn't there. And so I also want to talk to Will over here, Will, who also is a father and has sons of his own.
Yes, I do.
What is it? What is it for you? What do you see? What are the gains for having the father there? Or you can talk about, what it's like when father's not there.
Well, I've raised 2 sons and a daughter. They're all grown now, thank God. And I can tell you that the most important word that comes to mind is presence.
Yes.
I think fathers who are not around, a lot of times you have some kind of conflict with the mother, and you may feel like in the case of daughters, especially they getting into the teen age, maybe if I'm not around, so just with the mother, it'd be better. No. Presence. And the thing is that they should understand is that when they're not around, your presence is noticed when you're not around.
Exactly.
And when you are around, your presence is absolutely noticed.
Definitely.
However, there are fathers that are around and can be around and are not present.
Exactly.
Not engaged. So
exactly.
Presence is very important. Realize that if you're not there, your presence is still felt. The lack of it. If you are there, it's going to be felt. And if you are there, you should be engaged and be involved. And people should realize that if you are engaged and involved, raising another human being is probably going to be the single most difficult thing that you do.
Yes.
One of the key things that I learned, having an old school dad who didn't really talk much and communicate much, those generation, not your generation. I'm talking about the older. So I'm not talking about people who are young and seasoned and fly like us. I'm talking about older generations because they didn't communicate or they communicated differently. There's nothing wrong with it. But one of the things that I had to learn was that what worked for me or how my parents parented me in this new generation didn't necessarily equip me for all of the tools to parent my young people.
Okay.
So again, it's about presence and it's about being able to adjust, understand what it is that your individual children may need because they are different.
Yes, they are.
And not to say you can be fair.
Exactly.
But being the same is unrealistic.
Exactly. So I want to move forward over to our church relationships because a lot of people also are church hopping. A lot of people are moving from church to church and they leaving. Reverend Murphy, tell what's going on with people? They can't find a home.
I know it's very difficult sometimes because they're so sensitive. We have a lot of immature Christians. But Charles Spurgeon said something that I really, really like. He said that in the church world, you have to develop a blind eye and a deaf ear. And I contributed to that, and I was like, and you also have to have an unforgiving and confrontational heart.
Okay.
Because you have to still confront some things, but you must be forgiving at the same time.
Exactly.
And you have to have that blind eye because you can't look at everything that people are doing. Some people do things to you just to get a rise out of you.
That's right.
And so when you give a deaf ear, you give that deaf ear because you don't need to hear everything that he said, she said, they did. You don't need that. So you need that blind eye, and you need that deaf ear, and you need that forgiving heart.
Well, the church is like a hospital.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
there's
Yes.
people that are there that need help, but a lot of times, so the same things that you and issues that you run into, who are people who are unchurched, you gonna run into them
In the
Exactly.
church.
people who are in church because the common denominator is that they're people.
Yes.
And sometimes in the church, we have a tendency to gloss over things
Yes.
and put on pomp and circumstance, and you actually end up turning people off or not having an environment where people can feel that they can go to their fellow Christian
Yes.
and get help. And so people need to, do a little bit better job of keeping it real, because certainly Christ kept it real.
If we were acting like what we were supposed to be acting like, that the Lord has established us, the church, hospital, however you want to say it, and minister to people, things would be a lot better.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you in part, though, because I don't think the church there's ever been a time when the church has had it all right. That time has never been. And if you look in the Bible and you look at Jacob's family, you look at all the dysfunctions going on, which was a church in a sense. The church has never totally got it right. Sometimes we kind of want to reminisce and remember things in a way that it wasn't exactly that way. My grandmother was an evangelist. My grandmother went through HELL in the church. She was an evangelist.
Yeah.
I mean, so why? Because there was a time in the church where women couldn't even preach or couldn't even. So the church has never totally had it right. And I think that, again, the more that you said something earlier about mothers being honest with their daughters or being honest with their children and telling the story and the truths, the more that we are honest about it, I think the more that we
grow.
could be right.
But that's not the church's fault. You can't blame the
No, it's the
church
people. It's
for
the
that.
people who
The
are.
people.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to point out here is that the church is made up of people.
Yeah,
I think,
every day.
And all of us
Ordinary
with
people.
flaws.
Well,
So all of us.
flawed.
So just like we go to work and everybody got some issues. When we
Yeah.
come to church, those same people that go to work, same people come to church.
Exactly.
Same
And
Same
bring it,
people.
and
No.
bring it to church
No.
in their
Like,
pocket,
they didn't wake up
in their pocket,
church.
in their pocketbook, and in their wallet. They bring it
Yes.
right to church.
You know,
Yes.
they didn't wake up in church. They came into church with their stuff. And so I want to point out, that, we've had some good conversation, but the next time somebody don't speak to you at the door at the church, the next time you look at the pastor's car and you think that's a little too fancy for him, next time you wonder why they need a little extra money and the offering going around, stop all that judgment. That is not to be concerned with. It's too many people who mad right now at the pastor because he didn't come to visit you at the hospital. You mad because he didn't have time to stop by on Thanksgiving Day when he was spending time with his family. You mad because somebody didn't call you. They heard that you were sick. Those are some of the craziest reasons that people literally will stop going to their church. But as we pointed out, many of us were raised in the church. It wasn't perfect. The interesting thing I think you said is that we do have a memory of what we think church should be like. Yes, we all striving, just like in our Christian lives, to be perfect, to be like Christ, but we're not there yet. And so we can say the same thing about the church. God's not through with the church yet. Give our guest a round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back. And it's time for me to speak into your life. Now I want to talk to you about mending relationships and really the pain that comes with that. Earlier you heard us talk about mending relationships in the church, in the family, and love relationships, and how painful they can be, but also how strengthening it can be when you do have that person in your life, or when you do mend those relationships. And so you also heard me say earlier today that two of the most hurtful relationships can be family and church. But I also want you to know they can be two of the most healing relationships. So I'm having this conversation with you because sometimes we say, well, yeah, I know it hurt, but I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with the pain. But it's important that you understand, because they are also two of the most healing, you do need your family, that family support. Now, we will talk about, some people you don't need in your life, whether they're blood or not blood. But we will talk about sometimes how you do need to mend those church relationships. You've been out of the church for 15 years. how's that working for you? Is it really working for you? So we need to talk about how to mend some of those relationships. And I think in the spirit of the season, the spirit of the holiday, it's time for us to have that conversation. I want to start with saying, I know that it hurts. I know that it hurts a whole lot when you think about what they did, how they left you, how they treated you, and you have a right to feel that way. But it's not helping you to feel any better. Holding on to that hate, isolating yourself from the family, telling yourself that you're going to teach them a lesson. But who's really hurting? Are you really hurting them? Or are you really hurting yourself? You have that pain and you have that void, and you can't focus on what you want until you get what you need. I want to say that again because I mentioned that void earlier. The void is when something is missing. Something on the inside, something in your soul. Maybe your father walked out of your life. Maybe you never knew him. Maybe your mother was there, but she never treated you right. Maybe you felt like she favored your sister more, your brother more. She didn't talk to you right. She didn't love you. And that was maybe 20 years ago. Maybe it was just yesterday. But it leaves a pain, it leaves a void. And I want to talk to you about how to fill that void so that you can focus on what you want in life. Okay? Not necessarily what you need, because when you focus on what you want, you live healthier. When everything around you is based on your need, you will go after things trying to fill that void, trying to feel that emptiness, trying to feel it with lust, trying to fill it with TV reality shows, trying to fill it with books about the 12 shades of gray or however many shades it is. You know, you're trying to fill yourself up with things that don't matter. Things are going on in your life and you focus on the wrong thing. That's one of my pet peeves of today's society, that we are so caught up with the drama and it just keeps getting worse. It keeps getting worse. And the people who are doing these things, they know. That's why you can't have the iPhone 4. You got to have iPhone 5. You got to have number 6. You outside laying on the ground. You got to have the latest thing. People are amping up the sexuality. People are amping up the reality shows. People are fighting. I want you to know, just like I tell my students, they're only doing that because of the ratings. That means you're watching. That means you're a part of what our world is coming to. I want you to understand, when you fill yourself up with those things, you're only hurting yourself. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I really don't watch a lot of TVs personally. I like Hallmark. Okay, I like wholesome movies because it keeps me sane. I got enough of things that I do to try to help people, to pull them out of their drama. And so I try to fill myself up with good things. I want to talk to you about that today. It's really important that you understand what's important in your life. Because many times people say, well, I don't have an hour for the hour of prayer. But you online for 2 to 3 hours. You can't go to church because they stay in church too long. But you can go gossip with somebody and you look at the watch and you've been there for 5 hours. You can't pay your tithes. But, my husband and I were joking about this a few days ago. But you buying fake farms and fake horses and you playing games online. So much so that I looked at the research of this. People are leaving their kids at school. People are not doing housework. People are getting lost. They're literally getting caught up in society, caught up in what's going on in the world versus caught up in their own life. I want you to understand what you're filling that void with and what's really important to you. I want to go over here and say, when did the hurt begin? Because some of you feel like, well, I don't really know. It's become so normal to you that you don't even remember. But I always tell people that you are only as old as the pain that you feel. So if it started when you was 12, you still acting like a 12-year-old. As soon as that pain is triggered, you reacting like a 14-year-old. It was 20 years ago when something happened. You get around your parent and you ball up. Literally, many of us have roles. I know during the holidays, I gotta wash the dishes, and it doesn't matter that I'm a doctor. I still gotta wash the dishes, okay? So when you go home, that's your role. That's what you do. Now that's not so abnormal, right? But it's when a person is talking to you and they have verbally abused you so much that people literally find themselves balling up, turning into from the 40-year-old that they are into the 12-year-old that they used to be because of that same pain. I want to talk to you about, when did it start? I want you to understand that pain that you feel like, well, I'm living my life. Are you really? Are you really living your life as the 35-year-old, the 25-year-old that you are? Or are you still working off that pain and still reacting to things as though you were 12 or 14 or the time that you felt that divorce? felt that pain from your parent, or felt that separation from your husband, or felt that loss in your life. I want you to understand those voids and where it comes from. Some of us, we don't know that we need to mend the relationships, but I want you to understand why it's important. And it's important because we need to free ourselves. One of the things that we all know about is forgiveness. And here at our church at Oak Grove, we say forgiveness is a matter of life and death. And it truly is yours. It's a matter of life or death in this world. Not physical death, but the fact that you hold on to it, you become a bitter person. Now you're wondering why people won't answer the phone. Now you're wondering why people ain't talking to you because they don't want to hear the mess. They don't want to hear the drama that you keep talking about every single day. They want you to shut it down. They want you to move on with your life. But you can't because you're stuck in the bitterness of yesterday. You need to understand that you move forward when you start to forgive. And you don't forgive that person because of them. You forgive that person because of you. You forgive so that you can live. You forgive so you can laugh, so that you can move on with your life and be free. It's important that you understand forgiveness. Do the work on feeling the need so you can focus on what you want. The way you'll be sure to live on purpose and make decisions not based on your pain, but know that you are loved, smart, good enough, and that you have what it takes to move forward. Feel that void of weakness so that people can't take advantage of you. Because many people see who you are. They see all the wonderful things that you have. But if you don't know that you're beautiful, if you don't know you're talented, people will take advantage of that. They will take advantage of you physically. They will take advantage of your talents. And here you are working under somebody when you should be their boss. But because you don't know who you are and what you have to give, people take advantage of that. Know whose you are and know who you are. Mend the relationship starts with mending your heart, getting in relationship with God, but also doing the work. Whether you talk to a counselor, a pastoral counselor, a life coach, but talk it out, work on you, love you. I love you. God bless you. It's life-changing. I'm so excited to be here with two wonderful people. They're going to talk to you about community resources for mending families. We've been talking a lot about mending families in your church, in the home, at work. It's really important that you get the help that you need. So here are some resources for you. I have with me Dr. Sharonda Farrow and Mr. Dominic, right? Epps. Welcome again to the show. Please share some information with us about who you are and what it is that you have to offer to some of the folks who might be struggling, especially this time of the season, with trying to mend relationships.
Oh, absolutely. Well, again, my name is Dr. Sharonda Farrow, and I am the Clinical Administrator of Counseling and Psychological Services at Western Tidewater Community Services Board. So I'm very excited to tell you all about the wonderful things that we have going on there. So you'll probably have to stop me. But we do have individual counseling, we have group counseling sessions, and we also work with families as well. So that's very pertinent to this particular topic. We do perform and have family counseling.
Wonderful.
One of the wonderful programs that we have that we're starting up that I'd like to mention is our Nurturing Parenting program. And that is designed for parents and their children to be able to participate in groups simultaneously. It teaches parents about how to nurture and work with your kids, and it teaches the kids how to interact with their parents so that we can help to form that family bond. So right now we're focusing out in the Franklin area, but we are going to bring that to all of our catchment area, which we have a wide catchment area that includes Suffolk, Isle of Wight, Smithfield, Franklin, as well as Southampton County. So we'll be disseminating information about that. You can definitely call our offices if you would like to participate. We take referrals from agencies, but also self-referrals as well.
Love it.
So our number is 255-7133. Again, that's 757-255-7133. We do have additional screening line information for adults and children. Our adult screening line is 942-1990, and for our children is 942-1978.
Mr. Epps, tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. I'm Dominic Epps, the Teens Director at Covenant Community Church, where Pastor Harold V. McPherson is our pastor. And I'm so excited because I get the opportunity to work with your teenagers.
Yay.
And your teens get the opportunity to have a place other than social media where they can vent.
Yes.
Where they can vent out their issues.
Yes.
They can talk about some of the things that they're going through. And so one of the things that we do on every second and fourth Wednesday, we have what is called Tag Night.
Okay.
Teens After God, and which is basically a real talk session.
Last thing I want to say is, a lot of times I think parents feel sort of out of the loop. And then on the other hand, there are some parents who don't want to talk about these things at all. Yes. But, just like, I believe that God cares about us and our little stuff and stuff that you might think doesn't matter to him. You should care about what your son and your daughter, what's on their mind and what they care about, because even though it doesn't make sense to you, it wasn't happening in 1957, but it's happening in 2014. And so whatever's going on with them, the best thing that you can do is learn how to communicate, learn how to listen so that they can talk to you. Sometimes when they're telling you stuff, you can't go, what? Why did you do that? You just have to go, interesting.
Right.
Okay. All right. And then go somewhere and scream so that you can come back and hear the rest of the story. Because if you react a certain way, they're not going to talk to you anymore.
That's right.
So I want you to be open to what your children have to say as a family. Learn how to do better. And take advantage of these resources. There are resources in the church. Again, Mr. Dominic Epps, if you want more information about how he's doing his program, how can people get in touch with you?
Yes, you can visit www.covenantcommunitychurchva.org or give us a call at 757-539-1724.
Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you, for providing those awesome resources, for being on the show.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I really appreciate I like the information, so I'm going to be in touch with both of you, of course.
Absolutely.
But please reach out to these folks, Miss Sharonda, Dr. Sharonda
Yes, ma'am.
Farrell, and Mr. Dominic Epps. Thank you again for joining us for another wonderful episode of It's Life Changing with me.